There's been an increasing amount of hostility between classes from what I have been seeing. People blaming each other for the state of how things are, but the devs are listening to them too much and ruining the game, or so on. The reality is much more complex than that. Yet people have been doing this expansion after expansion. People boiling everything down to simple class warfare instead of really looking at the problems the game is having. No, I'm not talking about botanist versus marauder. I'm talking about casual versus hardcore players. This isn't something new to Dawntrail. This has been happening for years and years to lesser or greater extents. I don't expect this to end things at all, no. But I think it's helpful for people to try and gain some perspective for things by talking about it. If you like this or would like to see more from me, please make sure to press the like button, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, or go follow my socials in the description. I'm far from just an FF14 person, especially over on Twitch, where I stream lots of games. But let's stick to the topic of FF14. So, it happens every expansion. It happens with every change or lack thereof. But a lot of things the devs do is often attributed to them filthy casuals, or those stupid hardcore idiots. Yet a lot of the time, hell, potentially even most of the time, the problem lies within. Hardcore players should blame hardcore players for changes they disliked, and casual players should be blaming casual players for things they dislike. Let's take an example. When it comes down to homogenization of things, more often than not I've seen not casuals asking for making things the same, but hardcore players. I think back to even Stormblood and Shadowbringers with the removal of multiple tank stances and cleric stance. I'll take one of them at a time, but they are similar to me. For quite a while back in the day, all tanks had an offensive stance and a defensive stance. Going between them to maximize damage while not losing aggro was known as stance dancing. This was definitely something the casual spaces likely weren't too keen on doing. Only the hardcore players would do it for the most part. But I don't think casual players were swapping stances to do damage at all, let alone thinking to beg on the forums to make it easier. At best, the ones complaining would be mid-core. Too good to not try to be better, but maybe not skilled enough to succeed at the dance all the time. Players who know better, but can't act on what they know. I'm not trying to shift the blame onto mid-core players either, I want to be clear. More that jumping to blaming them casuals for your lost stance is probably premature. Especially when you consider I have seen a lot of self-claimed hardcore players say they don't enjoy stance dancing. It's a mechanic many people enjoy, but it's a mechanic just as many people might explicitly dislike. It's not inherently a matter of skill, just a matter of taste. This along with how warriors pretty much universally hated how at Stormblood launch, swapping stances would drain half your gauge. Those aren't entirely the same, but it's related enough that comes back to the core issue of the dance itself. If it is because of players and not just dev intentions this change was made, as many blame are the cause, it wasn't just casuals, or just mid-core, or just hardcore. It was people of all skill levels with their own reasons for disliking the mechanic. Do I personally think it should come back? No, I do not want stance dancing to return. But I do think our next tank should be a stance dancing tank. You might still just toggle enmity stance, but give us something that replicates the same feel for instead doing DPS. Unlikely given how they try to keep tanks simple, but, you know. The same goes for healers. Some people really liked cleric stance. A lot of us thought it was clunky and way too easy to trap yourself inside of it due to queuing being too generous. Or an errant fat finger. You could consider this part of skill expression, but a lot of people of all levels thought it was janky and not that great. The inherent problem in the healer case is that they also simplify DPS rotations on top of removing cleric stance. Healers want tough healing while also being able to squeeze out at least a semi-complex rotation beyond one dot and one attack spell. I can agree with that much. I cannot agree with bringing back cleric stance without also having a healer dedicated to the mechanic. Melees get in on the fun too with everyone asking for Monk to have a ranged attack. It has six-sided star which is often better than a ranged attack. Whether it would make Monk a better job or not is one thing. The fact that it is blatantly asking for homogenization is another. Even if it's jank, it is blatantly different. Then there's the recent example of Summoner. Oh boy, Summoner is a minefield of opinions. Once again though, the filthy casuals are to blame because it's not the mess it used to be. A mess that even fans of the job I'd never heard talk about it in a fully positive light. Pet jank remains with Scholar to a much reduced level, but the fairy was never a giant part of your healing. A decent amount, but not to the same amount a summoner pet was to their damage. But also, the general rotation of summoner being a dot mage instead of, well, a summoner. The job fantasy was not what I would call summoner personally, but it had plenty of fans, and still does. But it was a dot mage instead. Dots on very uneven timers, so that management was not the easiest task for those not used to it. It was a playstyle of jank and weirdness that I genuinely knew nobody who made summoner sound appealing. If it's from player feedback, it's not just casuals who are knocking on the job. It's likely more mid-core who understood how they may be lacking, and the hardcore who just felt the job needed a tune-up. Did they maybe go too far? Potentially. Did they listen to feedback? Yes. Though I feel like the dot removal was more a thing to do with how we started getting stuff like Baldesian Arsenal. We had been seeing issues with the dot cap and stuff like Alliance raids for years already. From 24 players to up to 56, and there being limited space for debuffs in content tier DPS actually matters a lot? Hell, just look at ultimates and how players are hitting a buff cap. It leads to a lot of issues in some comps. Reducing dots across the board massively fixed this. This applies to healers too. They could give them more skills that don't apply dots, but we lost the other dots to keep numbers down in large-scale content. Not every change is made purely in the name of homogenizing for the sake of it. Sometimes there's a genuine need for it. There are many other ways they could have taken things, but I don't think it was entirely a matter of feeding the casuals. Not all homogenization was asked for, but a good amount of it has been asked for, and by hardcore players. It's not all the fault of casuals who probably don't even visit the forums. If the devs tried to cater to casual players, it's not all because they asked. There definitely is a level of trying to cater to them, but many of those changes are things hardcores asked for too. Hell, Dragoon lost their Nostrons in 7.1. A terrible change that weirdly a lot of people were asking for and cheered for. It wasn't the casuals cheering that I saw, it was the hardcore types, including world first race level players. I don't think casuals are doing world first, now are they? Homogenization and reducing the fun of the job at the ask of anyone but casuals. Then comes content, which is such a mess of weird and contradicting opinions. The new Savage tier is too easy, many say. The new Ultimate is too easy. And some people weirdly are saying they're catering to casuals, which at best it's mid-core they're appealing to. Which I don't even entirely agree they're doing that. At the least, the first Savage tier of an expansion should not be harder than the final tier of the previous. On top of that, this tier has been more fun than any Endwalker tier. P1S was a joke. P3S everyone hated for orange on orange. P4S Part 1 was bad. P6S was arguably easier than normal. P7S was boring as sin. P8S was bad. P10S was bad. And P12S Part 2 was dull. So far the only fight I dislike is Honey Bee, and that's for Alarum 1 mostly. Same for the ultimate fight. I'm having so much more fun with Fru than I ever did with Top. Not even because of Looper, but because the whole fight is just bleh. Especially in PF, where you need to cheat to get clears instead of having more skill. Good luck convincing them to do Dynamis without it. Fru, meanwhile, is just a very fun fight, and just plain fun to do. Yet there's some players blaming casuals for these fights all being way too easy. When, you know, the real problem isn't even that. It's the first tier. It's gonna be easier to an extent. Ultimate is on its own grading curve that doesn't go based on first or second. Both of these were easier because of Pictomancer being completely busted. More damage than Black Mage, more support than Summoner. Red Mage at least keeps Ray spam as a benefit that can genuinely save runs that Picto doesn't get. They refuse to nerf Picto and raise the other jobs to the level they need. That's the main problem, not them making things far easier on the DPS end. Would the Savage tier still not be that bad on DPS without Picto? Yeah, potentially still tuned wrong on numbers. Mechanics, they're fun, and that is what should matter. Fun and unique. There's an arms race in some minds that fights should only get harder, and harder, and harder, and harder. This is unsustainable. Whichever ultimate you think is hardest, do you really think Fru should have been harder than it? To the point where nothing is fun because it's just pure difficulty? There becomes a point where it's unsustainable to keep making things harder without ruining the fun. On top of the fact I had to say what ultimate you think is hardest. Most agree top is the hardest. If you don't think top is the hardest, thank you for proving my point. I dread the idea of a fight being harder than top, because then you either get a static, or PF is a worse experience than Prog and Chaotic, where it's accepted that you need to cheat to clear, where you end up getting people who genuinely start using those same cheats in Phase 1 of Fru, despite his tethers being very readable if you spend any amount of effort trying to learn. Yes, really, I had someone trying to AM in Fru. Should they design fights different just because PF is dumb? No, that's not my point. It's just an example of what harder and harder fights does to people. There is a feasible limit on how hard you can make something, and a lower limit where it even stays fun for most people. I like challenge, I like hard content, but I'm not going to say we should make every ultimate harder than the last. That's equally restricting design in ways that just lead to it being bland and samey, on top of infinite growth being impossible. And going back to Picto and the Fru DPS check, there are comps that genuinely struggle in each phase depending on their comp. The DPS check isn't so easy cause the casuals, it's because Picto is busted. It's genuinely a problem, and they don't seem like they're going to fix it. Even a massive nerf to Picto would probably keep it as a meta pick for ultimates, even if it might not be so dominant in full uptime. 7.2 is soon, but we all are pretty sure they aren't going to nerf it at this point. Even if they did buff every other job, that would just destroy Fru's check in its entirety, while Picto would end up still being disgusting. Job balance is generally pretty good in this game, but can be better. Then Picto is to such a terrible level of overpowered. I'm never going to meta chase, I've cleared without one, but you can't fault every world first group forcing a Picto. Making DPS checks tighter and tighter because we want higher difficulty, we end up getting a P8 situation, where it was overtuned and they had to nerf it. Tighter check, tighter check, tighter check. Oh, it's impossible without a metacomp. Screw you, I guess. There's a genuine problem to be found here. It isn't the casuals. Then there's content. Jesus Christ, how much people blame each other over the content we get. We're getting less hardcore content because of the casuals. We're getting less casual content because of hardcore players. We got an ultimate in 7.1, that means they're giving us less casual stuff. You mean the thing we got in patch X.1, the last two expansions too? They gave us chaotic, that means we're getting less. We usually don't get big new content in X.1 patches. The Diadem in 3.1 was their first attempt at open zone content that failed not once, but twice. 4.1, I don't think we got anything. We didn't get the current Diadem until 5.2, 5.1 only added the base firmament and upped the Blue Mage cap. 6.1 was the PvP revamp, which came with the CC game mode. Chaotic didn't take away variant or any other kind of casual content. Not only that, Chaotic is designed to be mid-core content, not hardcore content. So blaming the hardcores for mid-core content existing is just dumb. It doesn't matter if they overtuned it, it's not designed to be hardcore. It's not even that hard a fight, it just has many failure points because there's 24 of you. I was going to do a whole chart thing to illustrate my point like I did in my Endwalker video. I'd like to instead link in the description a Reddit post someone showed me as I was thinking up this video. Saves me a lot of time to just say, here's a list of all the content someone else made. You'll see that every expansion for the last few has the same content up to the X.1 patch. At most you can say Endwalker didn't have an open zone, which is still a problem. I love those things, but that's not because of the casuals or the hardcore. Most probably consider it mid-core content, but it definitely can be casual content, and it's people from all aspects of the game who said they didn't want an open zone. Not just not tie the relic to it, but not have one at all. I don't entirely believe that the only reason we didn't get one is just because players said they didn't want one in Endwalker, but that's the given reason. Plus, look at how the Bozja storyline ended. They would have continued the story, but it got a rushed conclusion in the lore pages. People were saying the same things about how much content we're getting in Endwalker as they are in Dawntrail. Again, the cycle repeats itself every expansion. The only real point they had in their favor was no open zone, since as much as I absolutely despise that we didn't have a relic quest in Endwalker, relics aren't per se new content, but an incentive to do other content. 7.2 is bringing us the open field, new savage, and the casual cosmic exploration. Content for every level of player. The problem isn't this player type or that player type. We have constantly always gotten the big content in patch X.2. And we have always had this content to fall back on in the early stages of the next expansion. If you didn't finish Bozja, you could during 6.0 and 6.1. The problem is twofold. This cycle is consistent, so they never add anything big in X.0 or X.1. Patches have gotten longer. Whether you accept that they need more time, it definitely makes things feel more barren. It's the same amount of content, if not more content every X-Pack. The problem is we have it for longer. There are genuine issues with the game you can point out, but people are constantly pointing at the wrong ones for rage bait and clicks. Less content when it's all the same amount, and instead a matter of quality, and if you personally like what you see. We didn't get an open zone in Endwalker, but they likely started planning stuff like Chaotic back then, on top of them creating Variant, which has a lot of level design and writing involved, on top of the Criterion version of the fights. Even the trash in Criterion matters. Is it equal to the amount of content we'd get out of another Bozja? No. But are they putting the resources they would have spent on it to work elsewhere? Yes. Now we're getting all of them. We're getting a Bozja, Cosmic, and Criterions on top of the new chaotic content type. This constant complaining every single expansion that we are getting less content? It's just blatantly false when you look at it by basically any metric. Then when you turn it into blaming specific groups of players, just come on man, are you really gonna do this? Stop conflating what content is, what you think content should be, and what the devs are trying to do. This all ends on a very, very important topic. What does casual mean? What's midcore? Hardcore? Ask 10 different players, you can get 10 different answers of what that means. Is it the content they do? The amount of time they play? Their skill? A mix of all of these? Then you get into deeper weeds of combining them. A casual static for raids isn't meaning the normal mode raids. Usually. It's a casual savage static. But casuals don't do savage to begin with, right? So it means time. Then you get casual statics with midcore or hardcore hours. So it's not time, it's the skill. Every static I've been in has been casual or midcore hours. I'd say I'm at least a hardcore player when it comes to that I do hard content. Very rarely will people be able to agree on what exactly each of these terms means. Even if you can get a group that agrees on what casual means, there will be a dozen other groups that consider it to mean anything else. So not only is the class warfare non-constructive, most people can't even agree on who exactly they're angry about. There are criticisms to make of the game, problems that definitely keep cropping up. But this happens every time. This argument has been happening since at least Stormblood, if not longer. Sit back, relax, and think through your criticisms. You cannot like a raid, but it's not because casuals are ruining your game. The game can have a good amount changed based on casuals, but it's missing the forest for the trees. These things don't happen in isolation and in a vacuum. They actively are trying to please everyone. They're trying to give hardcore, trying to give casual, trying to give midcore, and listen to feedback. Blaming boogeymen is never going to get you anywhere. It's going to make you miserable for no discernible reason. You're making yourself angry for what reason? If everyone starts saying content sucks like Diadem 1.0, then go all in on your hate of it. Sure, I'm not gonna stop you. If there's people saying they love a piece of content, then maybe you need to remember that the customer is always right in matters of taste. It's simply not your taste. Those people aren't wrong or evil for wanting more of it. At the end of the day, speak with your wallet anyway. Even if your complaints are completely, factually wrong, you're angry at the game for some reason. You're not having fun. Only playing fulfilling a quota you made for yourself? Then unsub. Play a different game. This video is coming out the day Monster Hunter Wilds comes out. This is footage of me playing Monster Hunter Tribe with motion controls. Did you know I beat this game, including Alatreon, using motion controls? Don't do that! But yeah, quit until you want to come back. You're supposed to be playing a game for fun, not for the chores and to complain. No matter what reason, you're clearly not having fun. Go have fun instead. Who's ready for this video to be extremely relevant or extremely outdated in a month with 7.2, huh? But regardless, subscribe! And go down there and hit that like button. Feel free to come also follow me on Twitch, where I'll be streaming Monster Hunter a bunch. I may even be doing it right now. Depends on if I make any plans with people. Also, I have that Patreon for content making. There's a difference between criticizing the game and just yelling at random people in your head. Take time to formulate your criticism, and don't just act like the devs are doing things in isolation. That there's no thought put into any of this, instead of over 10 years of design, issues, and feedback. Even the bad changes like taking away Dragoon's Nostrons. Regardless, give the 7.2 content a genuine shot. Don't go in expecting things to suck. Give it a real shot. Coloring your own opinion before even trying is just begging for yourself to hate it. They're putting a ton of work into making the Triangle and Cosmic the best parts of the ones we've had thus far. Or so they say. So see if that holds up. Either way, may the power of An Nidhogg lay waste to your enemies.